Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavater Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Shri Govindaya Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. So today we are reading from SRIMAD Bhagwatam, first canto, chapter number 14 and text number 12. Shivai Shodhyantamaadityam Abhiroti Analanana Mam Angasarameyoyam Abhirebhati Abhiruvat Shiveshodyantam Adityam Abhiroti Analanana Mam Angasaramyoyam Abhirebhati Abhiruvat Shiveshodyantam Adityam Abhiroti Analanana Mam Angasaramyoyam Abhirebhati Abhiruvat. Shiva Shodyantam Adityam Abhiroti Analanana Mamangasaramayoyam Abhirebhati Abhiruvat. Would you like to chant?
Udyantamadityam Abhirauchanalanana Mam Anga Sharameyoyam Abhirebhachapirva.
Shiva Sodhyantam Adhyam Abhirayati Analam Nana Vam Angasaramayo Yam Abhirebhati Abhiruvat
Shiva Shodyantam Adityam Abhirotyanalana Mamanga Sarmeyoyam Abhirebat Yapuiruvat.
Thank you. Word-to-word translation. Shiva, jackal. Esha, this. Udyantam, rising. Adityam unto the sun, Abhi towards, Rauti crying, Anala fire, Anana face, Mam unto me, Anga Anga, it's like Anga Obhima, Sarmeyah dog, Ayam this, Abhirebhati barks towards, Abhiruvata without fear. Translation. Just see, O Bhima, how the she-jackal cries at the rising sun and vomits fire, and how the dog barks at me fearlessly. Please repeat. Just see, O Bhima, how the she-jackal cries at the rising sun and vomits fire, and how the dog barks at me fearlessly. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. These are some bad omens indicating something undesirable in the near future. I think, yeah, that's it. And even after this, I think there are almost 10 to 12 verses or even more. I think 15 verses. Yeah.
Very interesting. So tomorrow I'll be reading more than a dozen Sanskrit verses.
Yeah, so it's, next 15 verses it doesn't have purports,
Exactly.
but just the translation. It would be a good section for you, Mats. Just the purport, this one line purport today. Om Ajnanatimrandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahiyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutaha Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमः ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिते नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे मुखं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Paramanandam. Hare Krishna. I seek blessings of all the devotees here in the temple hall and online, and Srila Prabhupada and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, so that I can speak something on this verse today. And as we see in this chapter, particularly it's a very short purport, but in the essence, like we are continuing this verse, Yudhishthira Maharaj is seeing various omens, bad omens specifically. Omens can be good as well as bad, but here in particular, Yudhishthira Maharaj is seeing only bad omens, and he's telling this to his younger brother Bhima. And there are like specific the words which has been used here, which like Adityam is unto the sun. Like we also know one of the name of Vamanadev is also Aditya, is son of Aditi. So one of the prominent Adityas is also sun. So that's why sun is also sometimes called Adityam. Roti is crying. Anala. Anala also we use sometimes, like not sometimes, but every day when we see, when sing in the morning, Sansara Dava Anala. Anala. Sansara Dava Anala. So Dava Anala is like the forest fire. Similarly, that particular term, Anala, fire is used. Anana, Anan also we know, like sometimes we refer Ravana as Dashanana, that somebody who has 10 faces, or like for Ganesha we used Gajanana, like somebody who has a face of an elephant, like that particular verse Anana is also used. So there are some similar familiar words which have been used. And in the translation, it is there like, O Bhima, how the she-jackal cries at the rising sun and vomits fire, and how the dog barks at me fearlessly. And then Prabhupada in purport is stating that these are the bad omens indicating something undesirable in the near future. So in general, like there are Kavi Karnapur, he states in Anand Vrindavan Champu, there are three sources, or there are three ways by which somebody can understand about the omens. And omens can be good, omen can be bad, like we discussed earlier. So he says there could be indications from one's own body, where I think we have seen this in the previous verse, where he is indicating his left side is quivering, and left side of his limbs were giving some indications. So it can be perceived through one's own body. It can be perceived from other living entities, just like in this verse, like she-jackal is crying and dogs are barking. And third is through the signs which appear in the nature. So this could be like the three different aspects Kavi Karnapur explains. This is a science which can be studied, and it comes under the section of Samudra Shastra, where you understand like various indications. You see various bodily marks in some particular person's body, and you can also predict the future, or you can see what could be the destiny of this particular person. And also you see the signs in the nature, and you can guess something what's going to happen in the near future. So these omens, of course, it should not be like it would be also interesting to know what is the conclusion of Yudhishthira Maharaj and what exactly he did after he knew why these omens are happening. So that is also a very interesting part, which will, of course, it will be covered by the future speakers. But the point is, of course, he is seeing all these omens, but he was not totally overwhelmed, and it doesn't lead to any inaction. Basically, he took some certain actions, which we will see in future. But for us, how do we understand this omens? Omens, if we consider it with some parallel analogy, if you're driving a car and if you see a sign, a speed breaker ahead, 30 meters or something like that. So what do you understand by this? So you get a sign that you need to slow down so that you can go ahead. But the speed breaker sign doesn't mean that you stop. It means that you just slow down, but you should go ahead. You still continue your journey. So when this auspicious, whether it is auspicious omens or inauspicious omens, these are this kind of the signs that we see on the road, like speed breakers or like some red light or green light or some diversions. So it doesn't mean that we stop our journey there. It means that we continue. Even if there is a stop sign, it's for some time, but later on you need to go ahead or you need to take a U-turn and take some other route if towards your destiny. So this is also part of some of the science which is provided by various shastras, and devotees or like even non-devotees or like in general also they have their own ways of interpreting certain things, even in traditionally, not only in Vedic culture but also in other Western culture also we have certain signs or certain numbers which people consider auspicious or inauspicious, or even the celebrities they are very picky about their numbers, or sometimes even the sports person they have a particular number, they would only wear those kind of jerseys, and sometimes to put left socks first and like so. Even though whether you are a believer in the god or not, you have your own set of beliefs and systems, and sometimes you consider it as auspicious and inauspicious. But there is also a particular science which is designed around this, understanding this science, and that is called the Samudra Shastras. And not only uh, the astrologers who are expert in this science they could understand, but also there are, I think, one of the 64 um, things which Krishna learned in Gurukula. There are different various sciences which Krishna learned during his stay in Sandipani Muni's ashram. And one of the science was understanding the science and omens. And this is something which is very much required for a king, uh, because he need to understand like what could be the auspicious or inauspicious thing which can potentially come, and he can make the arrangements accordingly. So that was also taught to the kings, and that's how Yudhishthir Maharaj, here being the king, he also understand this science. And you always see, like if you go to Mayapur, she jackals they always cry. I mean, they shout. So it's not new, or it's not like something which they doesn't do. But here the indication of inauspiciousness is there, because normally they cry during the night. They see the moon and they cry, they howl, they give some signs to each other. But this is where happening when the sun is rising. Basically, in the daylight, the she jackals are crying. And that is the inauspicious omen which is perceived by Yudhishthira Maharaj. And also, it's quite common that the dog barks. It's not something new. But why it is Yudhishthira Maharaj is considering that? Because he's barking on him is kind of like he's the master, and the dog is barking in a fearless way towards the master. So the dog is also indicating certain things. And even now, like there are certain signs, like there are some animals who get the signs before the earthquake, especially the dogs and the honeybees. They get some signs uh, even before the earthquake happens. They get that feeling or like that tremor. They can understand and they can predict a bit in the future. And also towards the tsunami, it's quite common in Japanese people. They see a particular fish that comes up, which normally doesn't comes up during the in the normal seasons. But there is a chance of potential tsunami, this particular fish comes up. So even these animals, they have certain understanding or perceive. They perceive the signs of the nature, and they can understand what's going to happen. So these are some of the signs which are mentioned in this particular verse, and Yudhishthira Maharaj is trying to understand what's going to happen. And similarly, today being the auspicious Vyas Puja of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he himself was expert in this particular sign, not only omens, but astrology, astronomy in general also, he was very expert. And sometimes he would just see a person's face and could understand what's going to happen to this particular person. One time, one brahmachari was just sleeping like this. He was putting his hand like this. Even though he stopped practicing his astrology and astronomy after becoming Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, or after taking to the path of bhakti wholeheartedly, but something he could understand just by seeing. So this particular brahmachari was sleeping with putting his hand like this. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was just passing by and he could see his hand. And then later on, when this brahmachari came, he told him, like, I think it would be better for you, that you take for Grihastha ashram, because it will be much more easier for you to practice devotional service in that ashram. And soon after that particular brahmachari had to leave ashram because of certain reason. He could not control certain urges. And then he was peacefully, of course, he remembered the instruction of his spiritual master as well. And he peacefully take the Grihastha ashram. And then later on, he could recall, oh, it was predicted by Saraswati Thakur. So he was just, by seeing people's face, or sometimes just by their expression, their hands, he could read their mind and he could understand what exactly is going through them. And that is also sometimes we see Prabhupada disciples, they would say, like when Prabhupada would look at you eye to eye, they thought that like Prabhupada is looking through them. Like Prabhupada could look their past, present, future, and they would feel something like that. Like his glances were like very piercing glances. And that's the quality which automatically develops in a pure devotee. They could see the person and can understand the state of their mind, and they can guide them accordingly, because they are very closely connected to Paramatma, and Paramatma is situated in everybody's heart. And since they are also very much connected to the Paramatma, they can understand their mind, they can tell about them what exactly is going on and what is good for them. Similarly, like I think there is also a disappearance day of Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj today. And Purushottam Das Thakur's disappearance, there is also one of the associates. But today being Saraswati Thakur being the Param Guru for Prabhupada disciples, or like for us, like Param Guru. And one of the prominent acharyas in our Gaudiya Vaishnava line, we would like to speak something about him as well, so that we understand whatever we are practicing right now, it is by the grace of all these acharyas and the great sacrifices that they have done for us. And by their mercy and by their efforts, this is something which we are doing right now. It's all because of their mercy. And it would be very ungrateful of us if we don't glorify them, especially on the special occasions like appearance day and disappearance day. It would be very ungrateful of us if we don't remember their qualities or their pastimes or about them, and we don't glorify them. Srila Rupa Goswami in Nectar of Devotion, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, when he was stating about the definition of bhakti, anya bilashita shunyam jnana karmani anavritam anukulena Krishna anushilanam bhaktir uttamam. So in that Krishna anushilanam verse, in the commentary, Srila Jiva Goswami states that Krishna anushilanam means, it can be, of course, it's for Krishna, whichever, like, but it also means that all the incarnations of Krishna. So when Krishna comes, all the incarnations are also present in Krishna's body. Similarly, Krishna's things which are related to Krishna is also Krishna Anushilalam. So for example, Krishna comes, he comes in Vrindavan, so the abode of Krishna. Yamuna river, which is present, which is related to Krishna. Tulsi Maharani, Tulsi Devi, which is Vrinda Devi, she is also connected to Krishna. So it's not just respecting Krishna or avatars of Krishna, but also anything which is related to Krishna is also worshipable for devotees. And what to speak of anything which is related to Krishna, but also the Vaishnavas, the Vaishnava acharyas, who are very dear to Krishna, and they are executing the orders of Krishna. So it's not just Krishna that we have to respect. Anything related to Krishna, and especially the Vaishnavas who carries Krishna with them, is very important for the aspect, or like for progressing in the path of bhakti. So when we say kirtanam, it can be like, normally when we say kirtan, the first thing that comes in our mind is Nam Sankirtan, like we do Harinam Sankirtan and everything. But Kirtan can be also Guna Kirtan, Leela Kirtan, and Rupa Kirtan. So whatever we are discussing, the pastimes of Krishna, the pastimes of Acharyas, this is also one type of Kirtan. this is also Leela Kirtan. This is also, if we are describing about the beauty of Krishna, that is Rupa Kirtan. If we are describing about the qualities of Krishna and his devotees, that is Guna Kirtan. So Kirtan, it can be of various form, but of course, prominently, when we chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra, that is Harinam Sankirtan. When we do it congregationally in the association of devotee, and when we are discussing this kind of pastimes, it is very much pleasing to the Lord and the devotees. And when we say Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, what is one is book Bhagavatam and also the person Bhagavatam. So it is very much important that we glorify, understand the contribution of these acharyas in our parampara and in our lives. And sometimes we have seen that, like, if we sometimes read pastimes of Krishna and the avatars, which has taken place like thousands of years back or lakhs of years, sometimes in different yugas, sometimes we find it little difficult to relate to ourselves, or sometimes difficult to appreciate that. So it is. I've seen some of the devotees; they are like much more. They perceive Gauri Leela much more relevant to them because it's like more humanly, and they say like it is much more relevant to us, and it has much more understanding, and we can relate to it that because it just happened, and Mahaprabhu is acting in the form of a devotee, so it is much more relatable for us to understand. So that is something which happened like 500 years back, and his activities and pastimes, it's quite relatable to them because it is closer to the timeline. And similarly, for some devotees, they say even that is sometimes difficult to understand. But when we hear the pastimes of the acharyas, which just appeared 100, 200 years of our time, more closer to our time, it is much more relatable for them. For example, if we read Prabhupada Lilamrit, we could understand or we can relate to Prabhupada what exactly he's going through, how he's practicing his devotional service, how he's executing the orders of the spiritual master. So for them, it is much more relevant for them to understand how to practice bhakti. They can relate to them, and at the same time, they have seen, some of them have seen Prabhupada, or they have seen uh, their spiritual master, and they have seen them practicing devotional service, and that made them much more inclined towards practicing devotional service, and they can relate to them much more. So similarly, when we hear these pastimes about this acharya, that makes a much more impact, and we can see how these principles of Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Nectar of Devotions, and all the teachings of various acharyas can be applied in our own life, and how we can practice this devotional service. And interestingly, this year, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, actually, on Tithi wise, we celebrate all the festivals based on the Tithi, or like the on like basically the Vedic calendar that we follow. So it is on the Govinda month, like today's fifth day of Govinda month. On that day, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he appeared. But interestingly, this year is also happened to coincide with the date of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur on which he appeared. So Saraswati Thakur appeared on 6th February 1874, and today is also 6th February 2026. So this is his 152nd Vyas Puja, basically. Yeah, 142nd. 1874 he was born, so maybe 150, right? 152nd, yeah. And so it coincides with his birth. How often? Normally, I think it takes a lot of years, normally 20 years or 20 to 30 years. It takes, sometimes it coincides because there would be additional Purushottam month coming, and then it disturbs. And in Vedic, yeah, 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 it can be more sometimes, yeah, because it coincide. It normally doesn't coincide because there is a cycle of, yeah, it's always a different, yeah. So it's quite auspicious for us to celebrate this, like both the dates and the tithis on today. And we are celebrating this 152nd Vyas Puja. And of course, for any disciple, the Vyas Puja day is like very important day. They remember their spiritual master. Similarly, if we are the followers of Srila Prabhupada, for Prabhupada, this is his spiritual master's Vyas Puja, and he would take it very seriously. Whenever Prabhupada would be there in any temple, he would celebrate this occasion very in a grand way. Whenever there were like even few devotees were there, Prabhupada would make a feast for them and would serve them, and he would give lecture on Saraswati Thakur. So interestingly, I will just touch upon some of the aspects of his life, and we see, or like I will try to understand, or like we can try to understand uh, about his name, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. So when he was born on 6th February 1874, he was born in Jagannath Puri. His great illustrious father, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, was the magistrate in the Puri at that point of time. And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was reading SRIMAD Bhagwatam, third canto, and he was reading the prayers of Kardama Muni. And he was reading that Kardama Muni, when he was asked to like to have a son, then he prays to Lord. He prays to the Lord that may I have the grace, may I have the ray of Vishnu in my life, so that my son can propagate the message of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So when Bhaktivinoda Thakur was reading that, he was also praying because he was also doing all his efforts to re-establish the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. He's finding all the lost holy places. He's finding the birthplace of, he's trying to find various aspects of Chaitanya Charitamrita, what exactly happened, because it was all gone at that point of time. And he was serving in Puri, and he was also seeing various uh, malpractices that is happening in the name of religion. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he was also praying for this kind of ray of Vishnu. And eventually, he already had 3 children, and this fourth children was born on this particular day, the 5th day of Govinda month, on 6th February 1874 in Jagannath Puri, and he was named Bimla Prasad. So Bimla Prasad, the name was given to Saraswati Thakur as Bimla Prasad because there is a deity in Jagannath temple. It's called the Bimla Devi. It's a Yogmaya deity basically. And all the prasad which is offered to Jagannath is then offered to this Bimla Devi, and then it is distributed to everyone. So there is a particular pastime about it, how it happened and everything. But in general, that was because he was staying in Puri, and because of the grace of Yogamaya, this particular son was born. So they named him Bimla Prasad. And as soon as he was born, his umbilical cord was put in such a way that it would look like just like a sacred thread of a brahmana, of a scholarly person. So it is like a clear sign that is this particular boy is a very very scholarly devoted person. And later on also, when he was just 6 months of old, there was of course Jagannath Rath Yatra. Now it's like January, February, and in June, July there would be Jagannath Yatra. So it would be like he was around 5 to 6 months old, and Rath cart came, and it just stopped in front of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's home, and it was there for quite a bit of time. And Bhagwati Devi, the mother of Saraswati Thakur, she thought it would be a great opportunity for my child to get blessings of Lord Jagannath. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, being the magistrate as well, he would get some special entries. And they climbed on the Rath of Lord Jagannath and placed this little boy in front of Lord Jagannath. And as soon as the Panda placed this boy at the feet of Lord Jagannath, a garland fell on him, encircling the body of the little boy, this particular infant. And they all started to say like Jai, very very nice, very auspicious signs that this particular boy got the mercy of Lord Jagannath. Is a reciprocation from Lord Jagannath. And that point of time, this is what strike in the mind of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Maybe my prayers have been answered through this particular boy. And during that time also, because it's already 6 months, the first Annaprashan of Saraswati Thakur happened with the Mahaprasad of Lord Jagannath, which is offered to the boy. And it is also one of the rituals, like to understand the proclivity, or like what is the inclination of this particular child. So they place various objects like books, and there would be some musical instruments and other things to understand what would be the inclination of this particular child. And soon enough, this particular boy, he went towards the Bhagwatam. He picked up the Bhagwatam, so they could understand like he'll be very devout follower of Shrimad Bhagwatam, or like he would propagate this message of the personality of God at which Bhaktivinoda Thakur was praying. And we should understand, like Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, but as we describe his pastimes, you will understand the nature or the scholarly nature or the staunch purity that he followed in his life. When he was just 2 to 3 years old, Bhaktivinoda Thakur brought some set of mangoes, and it was quite common at that point of time to people. They would bring some mangoes during the summer season, and they would first offer it to the Lord, and then everybody would accept in the family. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur bought all these mangoes, and this little Bimla Prasad, he didn't knew anything about offering and everything, and he just went and picked up one mango and about to eat. And then Bhaktivinoda Thakur came and asked that you should you should not accept anything without offering it to the Lord. How are you eating it? And this little boy, imagine a 2 year or like 3 years little old boy, he took a vow at that point of time. Because I'm an offender, I will not eat this mango, or like I will not eat mango at all in my life. So even later on, Prabhupada is recalling, Prabhupada says like even if somebody would come later on as a sannyasi, as a guru, somebody would come with mangoes, he would not accept it, and he would say that because I'm an offender, and he would down like he would keep his face down and thinking and remembering that how he offended by not offering it to the Lord first, and I accepted it. So this boy who is like 3 years old, he took a vow and he followed throughout his life. Sometimes we see like even devotees, or as we take vow in front of sacred fire to our gurujanas, in front of deities, and we find it difficult to also follow. But this particular boy, self-imposed vow that he took himself, and he followed throughout the life. And it's not a big one, like it's just a mango, but it's something which he followed throughout his life. And when he was just 5 years old, he recited like he memorized whole Bhagavad Gita. Not only he just memorized it and repeat it, but he can also give purports. He can give explanation. And by the age of 7, he was expert in astronomy, astrology, Sanskrit grammar, and all the Bhakti Shastra, like basically Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. He understood it, and he could give those discourses. He could prove the Siddhanta, pure Bhakti Siddhanta, in his, or like in the debate. He would debate with various scholars. At one point of time, when he was just like in fifth or sixth class, that's what said in the book, there was a great scholar who challenged. Basically, he was challenging various devotees, and he was challenging Vaishnav Siddhanta. And Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he was so ferocious, and that's why sometimes we call him as a Simha Guru or the Lion Guru, that he was so ferocious. And he was quoting Shastras after Shastras, and he was quoting Shloka after Shloka and establishing the pure principles of Bhakti. That this particular scholar, he becomes so mortified that it was happening, the debate was happening in an assembly, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati talking was breaking all his misconception, putting all the shastras, quoting everything. And this particular scholar was so mortified that he actually, sorry to use this word, but he actually peed in his dhoti, and he had to rush for the washroom. So he was that much shocked, because that was the force of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And this force is not just because he was shouting, or like he was giving those siddhantas. It comes from the purity, because Prabhupada says like purity is the force, books are the basis, utility is the principle, and preaching is the essence. These are the four principles that Prabhupada would always touch. So Saraswati Thakur, when he would speak, because he was so pure, he could penetrate the heart of the devotees, and he would not compromise in any other upasiddhantas, or if there are any deviations, whether be it Sahajiyas or like any other party who are little deviant from the pure devotional service path, he would just try to establish the pure principles of bhakti. And so much so, like when he was around 12 years of the age, like he studied all the astrology books, astronomy. He was perfect scholar in all the Sanskrit, and he became he basically studied Surya Siddhanta. There is a book on astronomy called Surya Siddhanta, which gives all the details of calculations and how the planet works and everything. So he mastered that book. He also made some corrections because there are some errors in the book. He gave the purpose to that. He also made the adjustment because of a certain time there has to be some adjustment which has to be done. Otherwise, it will give errors in the calculation. He made errors adjustments to that as well, and then he published his understanding of the book and gave purpose and understanding, and it presented to the Department of Astronomy and various professors. And at that point of time, he was given the name Saraswati, Siddhanta Saraswati, because he was scholar and he proved everything on the Surya Siddhanta and various Siddhantas. So that time, his professors or like the scholars who were tutoring them, he gave them the name Saraswati, Siddhanta Saraswati. And that's why he was known later on also when he took sannyas, he kept that title of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. But just to understand like how scholarly he was, people would call him the walking encyclopedia because he can speak on any topic, any given point of time, whether it be political, non-political, it could be the shastras or anything which you want to like search in encyclopedia, you will get it from Saraswati Thakur with purpose, with understanding, with all the dimensions of it. So they would call him like the walking encyclopedia. And when he was still a student, he was so expert in this subject. Like when he was still a student, they kept us post of head of the department of astronomy department in Calcutta University just for him. They kept that position vacant so that when he will complete his studies, he will be allocated that position. But Saraswati Thakur later on, in his own terms, he was thinking, if I continue this practice of education and everything, there would be social pressure that then I should be get married and then settled. So intentionally, he would drop out or like he would not study. And even when he was a little child, when there were like Bhaktivinoda Thakur would send him to the tutors, and he would just read the Pratna or like Prem Chandrika of Narottam Das Thakur. He would just read their poems and everything, and then tutor would be very angry with him, and sometimes just to chastise or just to uh, uh, make him understand like it's not proper, he would ask very very difficult questions to him just to point him out like you are not paying attention in the class. And then he would start and explaining and he would give answers, not only the answers which the professor asked, but there could be like some follow potential questions. He would frame the question himself and then he would answer that questions as well. And then by listening to the answers of this Bimla Prasad or Siddhanta Saraswati, the professors would then, okay, you continue reading your Pratna book or whatever, because anyhow, you are not disinterested because you are uh, not interested, but because you have already learned all these things. So that's why you are not so much interested in other things. And he would continue his practices and he would help Bhaktivinoda Thakur in finding various places, various lost holy places. And if you see in Prabhupada's purport in Chaitanya Charitamrita, you will find certain description of certain places that this particular dham is there. You have to get down at this location, take a train, you have to go there. That all comes from the Anubhashya of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Why? Because he was traveling with Bhaktivinoda Thakur to find all those holy places, and he was making a note of all the things, all the places that he was visiting. And when he was 12, he also developed or like he invented his own shorthand writing, and he named it by Canto or something like that. So he has developed his own style of writing as well, and he was assisting Bhaktivinoda Thakur in various finding various places. And when Bhaktivinoda Thakur was making his Bhakti Bhavan in Kolkata, well, while they were excavating, there was a Kurma deity which was found, and then it was given to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur by his father. And at that point of time, when I think he was 7 years of age, he was given the Hare Krishna mantra by his own father, and also Narsimha mantra was given to him, and this particular deity to worship, and then which he continued later on in his life. And as he was there, he also served to one of the kings in Tripura, and he was serving there as a scholar. Like he would guide the king, he would also teach his children. and he stayed for there quite a time. I think 10 years he spent there. And later on, when he came back, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he asked him, now it's the time, because he wanted to take initiation from a bona fide guru. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur asked him to take initiation from Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. Now you see the contradiction. Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj was, in material terms, he was not so much learned, or like if you see, he was not so much educated. He would say that I cannot even write and like read my name properly if I write in Hindi or Bengali. But you are a walking encyclopedia. You are somebody who is scholar. And why do you want to take initiation from me? He would repeatedly go to Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj and ask for initiation. But the principle here, which Bhaktivinoda Thakur was establishing and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is establishing, is that it's not by the external qualifications or disqualification that one should choose a spiritual master. We should understand, like, somebody who understands the science of Krishna consciousness is the one to be accepted as the spiritual master, and we should take shelter of that person. It's not that, like, how they look or like how they present or how they are, like how well educated they are. It's not based on that, but how they are a pure devotee of the Lord, how they are practicing, how sincerely they are practicing the teachings of their spiritual master is the qualification to become a spiritual master. And he would repeatedly go, because Gaur Kishore Das Babaji would be staying in some forest, like he would not be staying in the cities. But of course, he would come for listening to Bhaktivinoda Thakur's, because every Sunday he used to give some lectures and discourses. So he used to come and listen to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and eventually he would perform his bhajan in the forest, very remote places in Navdvip. And he would send regularly. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur would go and plead Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj to please initiate him. So one time when he went there, he said, like, okay, I will ask Chaitanya Mahaprabhu about it. And what he says, if he says yes, then I'll say, okay, I'll give initiation to you. Then Saraswati Thakur said, like, okay, by what time should I come? So he said, you come by next week. And then next week again, Saraswati Thakur went and asked Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, so did you meet Lord Chaitanya? He said, yes, I saw Lord Chaitanya. Then what did he say? So then Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, oh, I forgot to ask. I didn't ask Chaitanya. Maybe next week you can come, and that time I'll ask. And then again next week he comes. And then he again pleads Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. Many times he comes. And then Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj said, yes, I saw Lord Chaitanya, and he said no. And then when he said no, that actually broke the heart of Saraswati Thakur. He thought, like, if Mahaprabhu is Patit Pavan, he came to deliver all the fallen souls. Imagine how fallen I am, that even Lord Chaitanya is saying no to me, and even this particular Vaishnava, Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, is saying no to me. It is better to leave my life, or like Kripana, what is that bhajan by Narottam Das? Kripana oile, Kandiya, Prana na rakhi bo ara. I will not keep this mind. If I don't get the mercy, what is the use of this life? And he was just about to commit suicide. But at that point of time, Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, actually he was testing his sincerity, and he gave him initiation and gave him the name Varshabhanavi Daita Das. That was the initiated name of Saraswati Thakur. And later on, when he took sannyas, of course, he became Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And when there was one occasion when he was invited to the king, and there were different scholars, and because he would speak so strongly about all the deviations, they would not allow him to speak, because if anybody would hear him, they would be his disciples, and they would become his followers. So they want to keep the influence on the king. So the other smart brahmanas, they didn't allow him to speak, even though the king invited him. And only on one occasion they gave some chance, and that too for 5 minutes. He just allowed him to speak for 5 minutes, and then shut him up. So he stayed there for 3 days. He stayed there, and because he could not speak about Krishna Katha, because he was invited for Krishna Katha and he could not speak about it, he was not even honoring anything which is given by the king. He was not even honoring the prasad. So all the 4 days, 3 to 4 days when he was there, he didn't eat anything. He was just accepting one tulsi leaf and was drinking some water. Because what he was thinking, because I am here for giving Krishna Katha. And if I'm not giving them anything, how should I accept anything from them? He just stayed for there 3 4 days, and when this 5 minute slot was given, he became very angry, and then he left that place because it's a disrespect for him. But at the same time, Kings felt bad, and he came to the station. That why are you leaving? Then he revealed his mind that because I was not allowed to speak about Krishna, and his train was around 11 p.m. in the night, and he reached near Navdeep. It was not a Navdeep station, but it was 5 miles away. He reached Navdeep at 2:30 a.m. and then he walked 5 miles, and then he went to his place where he was doing his bhajan, and he cooked for himself. And then he, after 5 days, he accepted something by offering the Lord, and he accepted some prasad. So that was his determination for practicing the principles of spirituality. And at that place, that particular place where we go now in Navdeep, it's a Gaudiya Mutt, where he vowed to chant 1 billion holy names. That is like every day, if you chant 192 rounds for 9 years, that would make like 1 billion holy names. And he followed that vow, and he chanted for those 9 years all. Just was his wonderful vow. And after that only, he had darshan of Lord Chaitanya, all the Panchatattva, and by their order, he took uh, uh, initiation, or like he took to the sannyas order, and then he became Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So this is something like just to touch upon of his wonderful qualities. And we see by the mercy of Saraswati Thakur, we got Prabhupada, and by Prabhupada's mercy, we are all here. Hare Krishna. SRIMAD Bhagwatam ki jai.
I have a very small question, again, especially for that purpose. Why didn't Prabhupada comment on 15, 16 verses? It's highly unusual that there's no purport. Can you please explain?
Of this chapter?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's astonishing.
Not sure, Mataji.
So I'm giving the talk, so I just want to see what your opinion is. Why doesn't Prabhupada give a purport? What's your opinion?
Maybe, I'm not sure.
That's a good answer.
Yeah, because
No, that's not necessarily. I
maybe
think
you can cover tomorrow.
well, I think Prabhupada doesn't so much believe in